This analogy is psychotic. What is this deflection, dude? What is this deflection? That's the whole purpose of the government. What is the job of the government if not this? What is the job of the government if not to ensure that there is a proper alert system in a floodplain? I'm saying it. Look, let's talk about Camp Mystic and the floods in Texas once again. I didn't get to cover this too much yesterday. At least 110 are dead and 171 are missing after the Texas floods, the flash floods. It's devastating. But let's get into it.
Central Texas before Friday's deadly floods. More than 160 people are still unaccounted for in Kerr County alone. The death toll stands at 110. And now a report is raising even more questions about whether the region was prepared. It has to do with Camp Mystic, where more than 24 were killed. Jason Allen is in Ingram, Texas. Jason, good morning. What do we know?
Good morning, Adriana. Yeah, that report released by the State Department of Health Services shows that just 2 days before the flood swept through, state inspectors signed off on the camp's emergency disaster plan. Now, that required that they have a disaster plan, that they have an evacuation protocol, and the camp met that. It was only required that they post that plan in buildings, that campers were instructed on it. It's not clear exactly what the plan was or how closely they were able to follow it the morning of the flood.
Meeting for the first time since flash floods devastated their city last week, Kerrville leaders were emotional Tuesday.
I wish to God there was a way we could have warned them. And that's the truth.
Survivors say they were unaware they were in danger on the morning of July 4th.
When you got out and saw where the water level was, what did you think?
I thought it could possibly be over.
At the Old River Road RV Resort along the banks of the Guadalupe River, park managers Marianne Moran and Hannah Thrasher told us they didn't receive any official evacuation warnings they would expect to get on their phones until it was too late. Instead, Moran says she was woken up by volunteer firefighters as water was already overtaking the property.
I think there should have been alarms.
You do?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like sirens?
Yeah. Why there weren't alarms going off around here is beyond me. A lot of people in the area.
Data from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration shows just how rapidly the waters rose last Friday here in Kerrville, cresting at nearly 35 feet above normal levels. It's the third highest surge on record for that part of the Guadalupe River, and 3 feet shy of the infamous 1987 flood that killed 10 teenage campers further downstream. Despite the risk, Kerr County does not have a flood siren system.
All of our resources are focused.
During an at times contentious press conference with reporters Tuesday, local officials refused to answer questions about who is responsible for monitoring the weather and sending out alerts to residents, saying they were focused on finding those who were still missing.
All those questions will be answered, but the priority right now is bringing people home.
Governor Greg Abbott said there will probably be state lawmakers who are going to be meeting the end of this week, the beginning of next week, to go over ideas on how to fix this situation. There are still 5 girls missing and 1 camp counselor missing this morning from Camp Mystic. Nate?
All right, Jason, thank you.
Sorry, I had to... Oh, look at that. Perfect timing. I had to shape up my beard a little bit. Well, not shape up my beard necessarily, but I had to clean up my neck a little bit. Do a little bit of maintenance. You made the times 100 creators? No way! Do it on stream. Too late. I already did it. By the way, before we get to the Epstein stuff, hold on. There is one thing I wanted to show. This is Texas Governor Greg Abbott. Okay? An absolute demon who came out and made a football analogy. It's like the football analogy in and of itself is so like it's so classic. Like, I am trying to be a real Texan here. It was like such a desperate attempt to try and present himself as like a real average Texan, it is it's insane to me.
Investigation. We know a special session's coming in about 10 days.
What is
That's
this
where,
rage?
I would say where it begins. Candidly, those investigations will begin by both the House and Senate before we go into session. So probably beginning later this week or the early part of next week, there'll be committees formed that are already kind of working on ideas about ways to address this. Second part of the question needs to be addressed. You ask, I'm going to use your words, who's to blame? Know this. That's the word choice of losers. Let me explain one thing about Texas, and that is Texas, every square inch of our state cares about football. You could be in Hunt, Texas, Huntsville, Texas, Houston, Texas, any size community, they care about football. High school, Friday night lights, college football, or pro. And know this, every football team makes mistakes. The losing teams are the ones that try to point out who's to blame. The championship teams are the ones that say, don't worry about it, man, we got this. We're going to make sure that we go score again, that we're going to win this game. The way winners talk is not to point fingers. They talk about solutions. What Texas is all about is solutions.
Dude, when a football team loses, or when a football team makes mistakes and loses, there's no chyron underneath the head coach's PR press that says 109 dead, at least 161 missing in flooding. Okay? This analogy is psychotic. It's an incredibly desperate attempt that you can tell, by the way, like, because if he had someone to blame that was on the libtard side, you know his ass would be going crazy mode over it. You know he'd be running around being like, you already know it's the goddamn liberals that made this happen. They hate America. They want you all dead. They want to kill all the Republicans in America and all this shit, right? So this basically is an admission that this is the closest you're going to get to an admission that they f***ed up. Okay? That's precisely the reason why he's like, oh, you know, we don't point fingers until we fix the situation. We don't point fingers until we do the recovery efforts, okay? That's it. That's what this is. And it's wild that they're like running with this. It's wild that they're running with this narrative. Like, I don't think this is going to be successful. If this were to become a successful line of deflecting criticism, it would only be a successful line of deflecting criticism because the Democrats didn't push hard on what some of the what were some of the major flaws here in terms of what were some of the major flaws here in terms of like where defunding took place and where what kind of like adequate prevention and alarm systems could have been implemented in a floodplain like Kerr County that they just refused to implement because they thought it was too expensive. Okay? And there is an example here. There is an example here that you can point to that's not from that long ago. Another aspect of anthropogenic climate change is obviously the increase in wildfires. Okay? Every single Republican immediately were like, well, Democrat-run city, Democrat-run state, look at them. And they even pointed the finger of blame at shit that unironically wasn't the problem. Okay? Like they were like, oh, they just weren't managing the water enough or some shit like that, where it's like, no, it's because of the overwhelming amount of like wildfires that were impossible to combat at that point because of the wind conditions that made it so that there was not enough water pressure. Like there are points of neglect and places to lay the blame on, and we certainly did, right? Underfunding the fire department. Like that's a reasonable criticism to make. Except because austerity is a Republican policy as well, they didn't even talk about underfunding the fire department. The Republicans instead claimed that it was because the fire department chief was gay. Like it was a lesbian fire department chief, and that's the reason, or a black mayor, and that's the reason. Like these guys are such freaks. Not only did they immediately shift the blame over to like the people in positions of power, when it was actually a not only did they instantly shift the position or shift the blame to people in positions of power, but they did it in the wrong way too. Like, could you imagine if I was like, yeah, Greg Abbott is disabled. That's the reason why that's the reason why Texas had so many deaths. Like, that would be a psychotic thing to say. You know what I mean? Oh, it's because he's in a wheelchair. Like, what does that have to do with anything? Like, what are you, insane? Like, it's just like, it's so frustrating. It's so frustrating. It's so annoying. But again, I don't think that people are buying this, but maybe they are. I don't know. I don't know how brain broken like the average Texan is at this point. So I can't speak on it as far as like, is this a successful way to deflect attention and deflect blame away from the responsible parties? Maybe it's working. I don't think it is though, because people understandably are. I mean, this is turning into a Uvalde style situation very quickly, where there are many victims, there are many harm parties, there are so many families that have suffered so much, and they understandably want answers. And so far, the Republican answers are idiotic. I mean, this is stupid. It's like, oh yeah, we're like a football team. Sometimes your football team don't pass the ball too good. Okay. Cool. Thanks, man.
In fact, I want to read you something that I received last night that's worth emphasizing to put this in context. Tragedy has come. That part is done. What we do now, who we are now, that's what the story is still being written. Let it be one of grace, of grit, of fierce love in the face of grief. Let it be the kind of story that proves that the hill country may flood, but it does not fail. Say what you will about Texas, but when the rivers rise, so do we. Not with blame, not with bitterness, but with boots on the ground, arms around strangers.
Bro, what are you saying, dude? You're the governor, man. You're the governor. You're not a random bystander who just like lost family members and is still like trying to cope with the trauma by trying to find like a silver lining or something. You're the governor. This press conference is specifically about your lack of involvement or the actions that you took that led to the death toll being as high. Okay? Oh, well, here's a poem about Texans and heart and grit. Like, this is the nuclear version of thoughts and prayers. It's like, bro, there are 161 people missing, more than 109 dead. Like, the death toll is insane in your state. This is a moment where they're demanding accountability from people in positions of power. And instead of answering for the 170 people that are missing, you're over here talking about grit and determination of the Texan people. It's like, well, that's not you, is it? It's a cynical way to deflect the attention back to like the victims, to make yourself seem like you are a part of the people who have been wronged here. That's all this is. I'll give you 2 examples of this. Okay? When, for example, the Iran nuclear sites were struck, and people were like, hey, I don't think we actually struck the sites. Like, I don't think this was a successful strike. What did Donald Trump say? Oh, you're actually not criticizing me. You're criticizing our big, beautiful airplane pilots, Air Force pilots who did this spectacular operation. Okay? Or when Benjamin Netanyahu also struck Iran, and then Iran struck back for 12 days of bombing in Israel, And, 30 people died in the process. 30 people were killed, right, in the rocket fires in Israel. And Benjamin Netanyahu on like day 10 was like, we're all suffering. I had to postpone my son's wedding. Bitch, you're not a part of the team at that point. Like, you are responsible. You are a politician. You're not like a random bystander that they're asking your opinion on. You know what I mean? Like, you did this. You did this. You literally struck Iran, and then Iran struck back. People are asking you for answers, like, and you're like, oh, we're all looking for who was responsible for this. And the same thing goes for Greg Abbott in this situation. It's like, what is this deflection, dude? What is this deflection? Keep Texas' name out your mouth. How dare you blame Texas' beautiful rivers? You take Texas rivers' names out of your mouth? Yeah, exactly. It's like, well, I guess you hate Texans and their grit. It's like, no, man, I don't want people to die. And I want the state, I want the people in positions of power to literally do the thing. They need to do the right thing ahead of time and do the right thing after the fact. You know what I mean? To like mitigate harm. That's the whole purpose of the government. Otherwise, we're just giving money. We're just working every goddamn day and giving a percentage of the money that we're earning back to a group of wealthy assholes who don't do anything for us in return. What is the job of the government if not this? What is the job of the government if not to ensure that there is a proper alert system in a floodplain? What is the job of the government if not to make sure that there are campsites that are not on a historic dried riverbed, but like at least in a safe distance from areas that are susceptible to flash flooding? Especially if flash flooding becomes more devastating year over year. Your job as the government is supposed to go to the scientists who literally spend every waking moment looking at how things are changing in the environment, okay, and how much more devastating these extreme weather events are, and take proper measures. Your job in the government is to fund those guys, the nerds that tabulate, that calculate, that do the research necessary. And then your job is to listen to their warnings and react accordingly so that you can save lives, so that you can mitigate the impact. Because I understand that natural disasters are impossible to perfectly deal with. Mother Nature is impossible to contend with. Obviously, everything that we do is against Mother Nature, but like, on the one hand, you're firing the scientists. On the other hand, you keep saying they're gay and woke and that we shouldn't listen to them and that they're alarmists unnecessarily and that climate change is fake. And then you're also not putting the proper safety measures in place in terms of like warning systems. So they're like tornado sirens. Like, one of the things that I heard from people that were in the vicinity, people that were in Kerr County, was really interesting. This guy said, why can't we have those same sirens that Israel has when missiles are striking? And it was an interesting thing to hear from a Texan in that moment because, like, they've seen it. They've seen it every day. They've literally recognized it, where he's like, Israel has a great warning system, right, for missile strikes. In his mind, he might not make that connection that Israel gets to have that because our money's going there, and you don't get to have that because our money's going there. Okay? Like, because remember, okay, maybe it's not directly for the warning siren, okay, for the flooding that was redirected to Israel, but didn't Greg Abbott push forth a bill or make a statement condemning the city of San Marcos' anti-Semitic resolution or something? On April 29th, Governor Greg Abbott today sent a letter to the city of San Marcos condemning its proposed anti-Semitic resolution openly flouting Texas state law. Israel is a stalwart ally of the United States and a friend of Texas, reads the letter. I have repeatedly made clear that Texas will not tolerate anti-Semitism. You know what it was, by the way? You know what the anti-Semitic resolution was? It was that I think San Marcos in Texas had a ceasefire resolution. That was what was anti-Semitic. And then there was another thing. Wasn't there another thing that he basically what was it called? Wasn't there another thing where he was like he signed into law like more money going to Israel from Texas or something? Like it was like $3 million. Because one of the things that you don't know that is always shocking. One of the things that when people find out they're like alarmed by is not only the anti-BDS laws, like in the state of Texas, you have to sign a pledge of loyalty to the state of Israel to get a job. Like you can't be a public school teacher unless you sign a pledge of loyalty to Israel that you will never protest Israel, that you will never divest from Israel, you will never demand sanctions from Israel. But there were I think San Marcos was also divesting from Israeli bonds. Okay. And that they didn't want to fund Israel, that they wanted like funding to go back to Texans instead of Israel. And Greg Abbott threatened the city. Yeah. You might say, Hasan, why do you always talk about Israel? But it's like, am I the only one? Or is it especially the states like Texas that are extra psychotic about this stuff? Texas City tells people no Hurricane Harvey aid unless they promise not to boycott Israel. That's from 2017. Texas City has required residents who are seeking government disaster relief funds in the wake of Hurricane Harvey to pledge not to boycott Israel. Like, Texas is one of the worst states for this shit. Okay? Texas is one of the worst states for like Israel loyalty stuff. Okay? I don't think you guys understand how bad it is. King Imam says you cannot boycott/divest from energy companies, Israel, or firearm companies if you receive money from the state. It's written into law. Yeah, this was what it was. San Marcos wanted $4.4 million in resident taxes to not go to Israel, but instead to redirect those funds towards essential domestic priorities. That's what Greg Abbott said was anti-Semitic. Okay? I mean, it just sounds insane. Threatened to pull. Does this make sense? Or is this confusing? Good time to remind people that Greg Abbott threatened to pull all state funds from a Texas city for wanting to redirect $4.4 million in taxes away from Israel back to domestic spending. That makes sense, right? Phoenix emoji, thank you for the 10 gifted subs. Yeah. And they also could have funded more warning, more alarm systems and more funding systems. And they chose not to. Extreme weather events aren't a new phenomenon in Texas, according to data from National Centers for Environmental Information, woke and gay. Okay, obviously, NCEI, more like, I don't know. I don't have anything. Never mind. NCEI sounds like DEI, exactly. Yeah. Like, look at this. A city of 70,000 plan to vote to reallocate the millions of dollars it sends to Israel to domestic priorities instead. America First Republican Greg Abbott calls this anti-Semitic and threatens to withhold state funding. Of course, this only happens with one particular foreign nation. Yeah, I got a Steam invite from Saikuno to play Peak, which I will not be doing right now. Obviously, I am covering the news before you yell at me, chatters. Okay, but thank you, Saikuno, for the invite. Good time to remind people that Greg Abbott threatened to pull state funds from a Texas city for wanting to redirect $4.4 million in taxes away from Israel back to domestic spending priorities. He called San Marcos anti-Semitic for this demand. Oh my God. Oh my God. I should have never even mentioned this. Everyone is being so stupid and annoying. It's so funny. It's so funny that there are, VOD viewers, skip ahead 10 minutes, okay? Yes, I'm going to go on a rant because every single person that's chirping right now would immediately leave if I stopped doing news coverage in the middle of the day. It's 12:41. You guys are so goddamn annoying. Shut up. Okay, I have to do news. I didn't get to do all of the news that I wanted to do yesterday because I had Stavros and Noah Colwyn in the building. Please stop being annoying, chatters, okay? Gaming will return when I return back to Los Angeles. Bro, can you please game on your travel laptop when you're in New York City when there's a flood plus ice raids happening? Thanks. Exactly. So, yeah. If you want to understand the priorities in terms of expenditure, the frequency of costly and deadly weather events has steadily increased since the 1980s. I wonder why. When an average of 1.4 disasters totaled billions of dollars in damage or more per year to a peak of 20 events in 2024. But in recent years, even with the increasing threat of natural disasters, Texas lawmakers and officials have largely been asleep at the wheel, unable or unwilling to take better precautions that, in hindsight, seem both necessary and painfully obvious. This most recent disaster, a catastrophic flash flood in Texas Hill Country that has taken the lives of at least 100 people, including at least 27 campers and counselors at Camp Mystic, began to escalate in the early hours of Friday while most were sleeping. Over the prior 2 days, the National Weather Service had issued a series of emergency weather alerts. So had the Texas Division of Emergency Management. On Wednesday, the Division of Emergency Management activated emergency response resources across 10 state agencies because of increased threats of flooding in West and Central Texas ahead of the holiday weekend, and it escalated those resources Thursday. Flood watches distributed out of the Austin-San Antonio Regional National Weather Service office Wednesday named several counties, including Kerr, and a list of specific towns, including Hunt, where Camp Mystic is located. Flooding was anticipated, but per most local officials, not to the degree that ultimately it occurred. Texas Emergency Management Chief Nim Kidd said at a news conference that the forecast from the National Weather Service did not predict the amount of rain that we saw. It wasn't until 4 a.m. on Independence Day that the National Weather Service sent out an emergency alert urging residents to find higher ground and a series of subsequent and increasingly alarmed alerts from 5 a.m. to 7 a.m. But according to a CBS News analyst, Kerr County didn't initiate any messages through its integrated public alert warning system used to send emergency texts from local government agencies. As a result, many swept up in the floods were caught by surprise, particularly in Kerr County, which doesn't have an emergency warning siren system, despite the topic being a subject of local government discussion for some time. Yeah, this is actually the tragic comedy here, which is that this is the Texas local government and state government version of it was on our radar. Okay, you know how the FBI will be like, oh, this person was on our radar in the aftermath of like a tragic mass shooting event or whatever. It's like, oh, this could have been prevented, but he was on our radar, but we just didn't do anything. This is basically the version of that, but for extreme weather incidents. Nearly a decade ago, the county had considered a system of sirens, but that wasn't pursued because of the high expense required and a rejected 2018 application for a $1 million grant from the Upper Guadalupe River Authority, which offered to cover only 5% of the estimated cost. As recently as 2023, the County Commissioner's Court was still discussing grant options, according to meeting minutes. Lacking support from the state or regional agency, Kerr County, with a budget of tens of millions, decided it couldn't afford it. Kerr County Judge Rob Kelly, the county's top elected official, told the New York Times in a recent interview, taxpayers won't pay for it. There is a similarity with the devastation that was brought about with the recent California wildfires here. And that was expenditure priorities of the state. It is very similar in many ways because obviously it is an unimaginably escalation, right? Like it makes sense that there is a limit to how much you can combat Mother Nature. Okay? There is a limit to it, just like with the devastation caused by the wildfires. In Texas, there is a limit to how much you can successfully mitigate the damage and the impact of flash flooding. Okay? But these kinds of precautionary warning systems are an absolute necessity. And yet, it is seen as negligible by people in positions of power. Here is a long effort post from r/Texas Politics from 3 days ago that dives into, with great detail, some of the internal politics of the state of Texas. I normally wouldn't rely on Reddit, but this seems very well sourced. Okay? A man named John Cornyn is referenced by Rob Kelly in connection with ARPA funds. The only lawyer named John Cornyn I've been able to identify in the state is a current U.S. Senator. Additionally, just last year, July 25th, 2024, Rob Kelly requested that Governor Abbott declare a state of emergency for Kerr County due to severe storms and flooding. These are the regular session minutes from 6/27/2016. Okay? This person dug deep and found the literal minutes of 2016 Kerr County, where you have commissioners talking to one another about the necessity, commissioners talking to one another about the necessity of alarm systems due to and the expenditure priorities being reallocated to alarm systems due to the fact that, you know, flooding could be a fucking major issue. You know, we had a baby flood a couple weeks ago, says Commissioner Baldwin, a month or so, whatever it was. And I keep hearing these reports of the old system. And I know we're not going to deal with that, though. Expect that to be gone, where the Jones called the Smiths and the Smiths called Camp Rio Vista and Rio Vista, blah, 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 all along down the line. But it's still there and it still works. The thought of our beautiful Kerr County having these damn sirens going off in the middle of the night, I'm going to start drinking again to put up with y'all. I think, Commissioner Moser says, I think this and that what the committee is going to look at and how to do it. I think the going in position is that we don't have to change anything. And is there a need to improve what we have? And I think the first thing to do is say, why change anything? It worked this long, and maybe we don't need to do a thing. And then it gets into the thing we talked about earlier, and that's risk mitigation. And, you know, there's still people getting drowned. And, you know, Commissioner Baldwin interjects, says, and I hope you ask a question like, who are we notifying? And who are we trying to get the message to? Are they these crazy people from Houston that built homes right down on the water? Well, I think the thing is, you say it's for the general public and the crazy people from wherever they are, from Houston, okay, and then the camps. And then how to get the message out to those, that's all part of it. So it's a pretty complex project. I'm sure it is. And the question is, do we need to do anything? And what do we want to do? And what can we afford? Mrs. Stebbins says, Commissioner Moser, will you put it on the next agenda for discussion after you have this meeting on Thursday? Oh, absolutely right. Okay, thank you. I will comment that we don't have any crazy people that live here. The few that we do have, we handle them through CSU, or they serve on the board. I'm just trying to keep us out of trouble here. Okay, the media is still here. All right, any other reports? In 2016, Kerr County contracted for an engineering study on their current warning system, and we're told it was antiquated and inadequate. Okay? They did an engineering study. They found that their warning system was antiquated and inadequate in 2016. They had a session after it. Okay? We have a system that's not working. We need to certainly look at it. Technology is great, but it's still one of the best things. So you may disagree with me, the people upriver calling, but because you're going to get a call, I've just received this year, I've received just this year from calls before it's even had time of warning to go off. I'm getting texts from Divide Fire Chief, and I think, where'd the sheriff go? I sent you a text the other night. Like, they have a telephone chain as their antiquated ass a version of alert systems, it seems like. Is this in English? I mean, they're just like free flow conversation minutes from commissioners talking to one another. The second part of the study contained recommendations for updating the system, and sirens were purposely left out even though other areas had implemented them. Como County has implemented a river gauge and siren system that includes New Braunfels, Guadalupe County, and the Water-Oriented Recreation District as funding partners. When gauge heights reach a certain level, emergency management personnel are notified and the siren is automatically activated. Emergency personnel can also activate the sirens remotely if they know floodwater is headed downstream. The data from each gauge, including river height and rainfall, is available online for anyone, including residents, to access. They filed for federal assistance via hazard mitigation grant for $976,000. Then they discussed the warning system. After failing to secure a grant, they continue to kick the can down the road. 2021 rolls around, and they have over $5 million in ARPA funds in their bank and will wind up with a grant of a total of over $10 million. So basically, other places that implemented these prevention measures, but Kerr County never did. And the reasoning for it was, as the judge said to MSNBC, is too expensive. So in the state of Texas, when a different County or San Marcos City Council votes to advance a ceasefire resolution and also wants to end their funding of Israel's military with federal and local tax dollars to the tune of $4 million, Greg Abbott puts a stop to that and says, we will defund you. You don't get to defund Israel. We will defund you. How dare you be so anti-Semitic? When it comes down to it, when it comes down to implementing warning systems for regular Texans living in a different county, in Kerr County, they say, we don't have money in the bank. Isn't that nuts? Obviously, these two places are not directly associated with one another. I'm not saying like St. Marcos is could have spent some of this expenditure on Kerr County or something. That's not the argument that I'm making. The argument that I'm making is that the local state government expenditure priorities are so distorted. They're so insane. It's all a matter of who gets the money and how much they are willing to spend for certain spending priorities versus other spending priorities. And I have already shown you this as well. Texas City, during Hurricane Harvey, required an Israel pledge for hurricane relief. So it's one of those, Texas is just like one of those insane states where, one, you have to sign a loyalty pledge to the state of Israel to even get a job as a public school teacher. A loyalty pledge that dictates that you cannot ever demand boycotts from the state of Israel, demand divestment from the state of Israel, demand sanctions to the state of Israel. Same with, weapons manufacturers. You can't do BDS to them. And same with the fossil fuel industry. You can't do divestment from them either. Okay? It's just weird because Israel's a foreign nation. It's weird for a loyalty pledge to either of any of these things, right? But it's extra weird when you got Israel as a foreign nation that we have to give funds to. Yeah, you have to sign a loyalty pledge to do any business with the city of Austin. Are there any other is there another foreign nation that has this kind of expenditure priority? Are they in the state of Texas? Do you give multiple millions of dollars to Estonia? And if you don't give multiple millions of dollars to Estonia, or you say, hey, we have to stop giving. Why are we giving $4 million to Estonia? We should pull that back and focus on domestic expenditure priorities. Yeah, because MSNBC is a reliable source. That's so funny, VTuber Lance. MSDNC is not the most reliable source, but this reporting is not just coming from MSDNC. It's literally everywhere. This is just a summarization of things that we have covered already. And it's not even talking about Israel. Why would MSDNC ever talk about Israel in a critical manner? I am packaging that into this conversation. I'm also saying the truth. You can just like try to counter that instead of attacking an irrelevant source here. But it seems like you're too invested in trying to, I guess, undermine the argument by pointing to something that is completely irrelevant rather than recognizing the reality in the state of Texas and many other states as well. Coincidentally, usually winning teams say we got this before the big game. So, interesting. Just something to consider. Local officials not only failed to put in place emergency warning systems in an area known for sudden and potentially deadly floods, but they also appeared blindsided and unprepared to address tough questions. Kelly told reporters at a news conference Friday that officials had no idea the flood was coming, even though the area has a long history of deadly floods. Like, this is Kerr County Judge Rob Kelly, who we saw in some of the fucking meeting minutes that we were just reading, okay? And this guy's like, oh, MSNBC, not a reliable source. Okay, take it up with Kerr County Judge Rob Kelly, the county's top elected official. Tell me you're fragile without telling me you're fragile. I'm fragile. Brother, you couldn't even handle, like, just a little bit of new information entering your brain without throwing a fit. Like, what do you mean, tell me you're fragile without telling me you're fragile? What argument do you perceive you have won here? You came in here and you said MSNBC is not a reliable source. MSNBC's reliability is not called into question here unless you have evidence that Kerr County Judge Rob Kelly is being misquoted here. That's not how you tackle an argument. I'm trying to educate you on how to properly identify bad talking points and accurately address them. If there's something wrong here with my coverage, I would be perfectly fine with going back on it and you know, recognizing that I showed something that was incorrect, but you're not doing that. There are instances where I get something a little wrong and chatters will come in because we all come to you for an education law. I mean, many people do, as a matter of fact. And if you were to maybe be a little bit more charitable, you could also get educated in this instance. Like, I'm sure that you didn't know that you have to sign a loyalty pledge to Israel in the state of Texas to become a public teacher, for example, right? This is new information that has penetrated your consciousness, even if you didn't want to learn about it. Now you have this information. You will hopefully retain this information. You found out about a city in Texas that wanted to reallocate $4.4 million in expenditure away from the Israeli military back to their local needs, which Governor Greg Abbott, the governor of the state of Texas, said absolutely not to, and it claimed it was anti-Semitic to make such a demand. This is new information for you, I suspect, unless you already knew this. I'm not falling for the rage bait. I'm not raging. This guy's following that Nux guy, Mark Dice. His brain is like microwave hot dog. Here, he is here specifically to be obtuse. I'm sure his parents have combos about him with his siblings. Still, anyone can learn new things. And I will not give up on that chatter, or anyone else for that matter. But who knows? I'm holding out hope. Texas public teacher here. Yes, we do have to sign a no boycott Israel form. I had to sign one for judging a different Texas district's band contest. Is actually insane. Yeah. And if it's not that person that learned something new here, in the process of me addressing that person, there are plenty of new people that do learn something that they previously didn't know, which is why I don't think it's a waste of time and energy. Okay? So remember that. Let's continue. A review of the extant reporting on the disaster and the unfolding recovery efforts reveals a series of failures at the local and state levels. Local officials not only failed to put in place emergency warning systems in an area known for sudden and potentially deadly floods, but they also appeared blindsided and unprepared to address tough questions. Kelly told reporters at a news conference Friday that officials had no idea the flood was coming, even though the area has a long history of deadly floods. We have floods all the time, Kelly said. This is the most dangerous river valley in the United States, and we deal with floods on a regular basis. When it rains, we get water. We had no reason to believe that this was going to be anything like what's happened here. None whatsoever. Camp Mystic, the site of many of the confirmed deaths, was one of the several summer camps in the Kerr County area that weren't evacuated Friday. Camp Mystic restricts use of cell phones, which prevented counselors and campers from receiving national weather alerts and likely hampered responses to rising waters in the area, lacking evacuation sirens. Asked why they weren't evacuated at a news conference, Kelly said, "I can't answer that. I don't know." Well, I think we know. How is being kind and charitable to someone like this?
You can't be MAGA.
Not when they go low, we go high. Libtard bullshit. Genuine question because I'm struggling here. What is this?
I am MAGA and a Christian.
This is crazy. I know we're not Kerr County. I know we're not Kerrville. I know we're not San Angelo or San Antonio. But hell, we're human beings.
Uh-oh, I think you woke up this morning misinformed. The hate's on the left, not on the MAGA side. What you gonna do, crybaby? I'll wear alligator Alcatraz merch if I want to. And what you gonna do, baby?
Help us.
Wait, this is the same lady? Is this even the same woman? Or is this a different woman that someone just like patched together? And even then, I don't give a shit. Do you think she deserves to die? No. Okay? Yeah, this is a barely literate person. Okay? This is a barely literate person who's hopped up on fumes. Who gives a... I don't want her to die. Okay? Maybe I'm brain broken, but I don't care. I don't care that this is a bad person, objectively, okay? I don't care. They're still a victim of a natural disaster. I would much rather spend this time trying to help this person and then simultaneously talk about how, you know, what I've been talking about right now, which is the priorities of expenditure in her own state from her own MAGA politicians is what has caused this devastation to be significantly worse than what it should have been. Okay? It's not about like when they go low, we go high. It's about having it is about having a moral system that is built around empathy. Okay? It is about making sure that your first principles, your first priorities is around mitigating harm. That's mine. So when I see someone like this who's like angrily posturing about MAGA or whatever the interlaced with like this TikTok, interlaced in this TikTok video where like she's begging for help in the aftermath of a hurricane. Okay, my attitude is to one, immediately offer help, and then two, use this as an opportunity for education so they don't make this mistake again. This is an impactful moment. Basically shutting this person off and just telling them that they suck and they're stupid and they deserve this pain and that they brought about themselves is only going to make things worse. It's not helpful. It's not productive. And I think that this is a byproduct of being online anyway. If you were around this human being, okay, if you were around this human being, if you were, I don't know, visiting Texas or something, and she was crying in front of you like this, even if you knew that she had said some horrifying shit online in the past, you would not have the capacity to be as like short with her as you are online. Okay? This is yet another byproduct of constantly experiencing things almost entirely online. That's it. Says you underestimate us? No, man. No. That's ridiculous. It's the same principle behind like people chirping all the time on the internet, being like, Hasan sucks, he's this, he's that. And then I go out in the real world. I don't know what people have said about me online, but there's no bad blood ever in my interactions with people. Even like every now and then when haters or trolls try to show up, it's a much more limited way of approaching me in the real world. So I try to always think about like when I see someone online, I try to, and I have my weak moments as well for sure, but I try to see it as like these are human beings. They have the capacity to be misguided. Okay? They have the capacity to be violently angry, violently racist, but ultimately you have to be a bigger person and remind yourself that like they arrived at this way of thinking as a consequence of years and years of austerity, years and years of redirecting their priorities back to like marginalized communities. They've been duped. They've been duped into thinking like this. So you still have to you still have to be as empathetic as you physically can be towards someone like this.
I'm going to tell you FA and FO. We're not going to help out anybody. Y'all been living on food stamps, EBT, Section 8 housing your entire freaking life.
Dude, there's TV in the background screaming, and she's also screaming about EBT is so funny because it's like she's talking about black people there, but I'm willing to bet that she also literally uses welfare herself.
And you're not going to do it anymore. If you can work, you're an able-bodied person, go get a job. I'm tired of paying for it.
But for God's sakes, Travis County, help us.
Have the day you deserve.
So yeah, when you see stuff like this, remind yourself that these are like normal human beings. Remind yourself that these are normal human beings and use this as an opportunity for education rather than an opportunity to shit on this person, okay? That's it. I don't know what Good Trouble is going to say. I hope he's not going to dunk on this woman. But yeah, we have an empathy problem in this chat. It's not just this chat. It's just online. We have an empathy problem online. People have no capacity to put themselves in other people's shoes in the same way that that lady has no capacity to put herself in someone else's shoes. When she's talking about that lady is so hopped up on fumes of virulent MAGA style white supremacy that she doesn't realize she's wearing the same shoes as the people she's shitting on when she's like, oh, well, you know, no more welfare state for you. Lady, you got the same shoes on. She can't even recognize that she herself is most likely in a similar predicament. So our goal should be to educate people like that, to be like, listen, do you take SNAP benefits? Do you have Medicaid? Do you have Medicare? Like, then you are actively advocating to take that stuff away from yourself as well, because someone duped you into believing that there are undeserving people that are taking advantage of the system, when in fact, in the eyes of the state, they see you just as they see those people that they've told you to hate. We have a severe lack of empathy online, and it gets only worse as a direct consequence of things having people having even less and less than they did prior. Okay, the less people have, the more vicious people get, the more ruthless people get, trying to take a crumb of the remaining resources for themselves. It's a knife fight out there, and it's especially bad online. But here's a person we can all get together and shit on actively. If you want to get mad at like individual right-wingers, get mad at people like this. Charlie Kirk on the deadly Texas flooding. The death toll likely would not have been as high if it wasn't for DEI.
The Democrats, they're so despicable.
In Texas, dude? Really? DEI in Texas? Are you saying Governor Greg Abbott is in a wheelchair? Is he doing the thing? He's like, Governor Greg Abbott is handicapped. We shouldn't have had him as governor. We need a governor who can dive into the water and swim and extract people himself, personally.
The Democrats are not lifting a finger to remember the well over 100 people that have died in Texas Hill Country. What you are not being told by the media anywhere is that the death toll likely would not have been as high if it wasn't for DEI. This Texas tragedy is just the latest example. It's not just incompetence.
Yeah, DEI, divert extreme investment. Divert extreme investment to Israel. That's what the I stands for. It stands for both investment and Israel. That's what it is. That's what he's talking about. We have never had more stupid people in the White House than we do now.
As a federal government.
Oh my Lord. Oh my Lordy Lordy. Oh my God.
This is DEI working to undermine meritocratic institutions and...
Brother, this is Texas. What the... Wait, Texas is also doing DEI? What's he talking about? Did he think that this was California? What does he mean when he says DEI? Is he talking about divert environmental investment? DEI, divert everything to Israel? What the fuck is he talking about? Is there something going on in Texas that I was oblivious to? That is Texas also doing DEI now? What? It's a red state. What the hell happened? Texas is so woke they had a whole country full of Mexicans settle next door. I know. Some of them, when we drew the lines, remained in Texas, as a matter of fact. Hella Mexicans there. Teleprompter got the wrong script. Yeah, I'll have you know, there are Mexicans in Texas, dude.
More people likely died than otherwise would have because of DEI. The Democrats, they're...
Bro, this is also, like, this kind of commentary also is a direct consequence of people getting dumber and dumber year over year, where like he doesn't even need to make an argument. Have you noticed that there is no argument being made here? Okay? There is no correlation. There's not even a correlation. You can't even say like correlation does not mean causation. At least back in the day, they used to point to something. They used to like point to a correlation falsely, okay? They would do false equivalencies. They would do like silly ways of implementing logical fallacies to make a somewhat of a convincing argument. Now, it's just catchphrases, man. This is DEI. DEI is the reason why this is as bad as it is. And also because wokes. Yeah. Woke DEI in the state of Texas? Woke DEI in the state of Texas? That's what happened? Yeah, this is why Ben fell off. This is precisely why Ben Shapiro fell off, because at least he was like trying to make a clear argument as to, like, he was trying to at least like create some talking points that made sense to those in the margins. But nowadays, with increased political polarization and a lack of interest, a severe lack of interest in identifying issues and solving them, all you need to do is hit a button. It's like you could substitute reaching. No, I don't think that's a reach. I don't think that's a reach at all. Especially because like this is something that a professional political commentator would avoid. Okay? When I say something is a problem born out of capitalism, for example, okay? Or even if Charlie were to say like something is an issue with like socialization or something, like diverting funds away to like woke transgender surgeries instead of, like, I'm doing a better job of making a convincing right-wing argument here. If I was a Republican commentator, I'd be like, well, Texas actually had to reorient its expenditure priorities as a direct consequence of the federal government under the Biden administration to make sure that transgenders were getting bottom surgeries in immigrant detention centers at the federal facilities. Like, at least I'm lying, but I'm lying in a direction that kind of makes sense, okay? On the other hand, Charlie just goes, nah, Texas is a DEI state, man. Like, what the what do you mean Texas is a DEI state? I thought people voted for honest to God meritocracy in Texas. Do you see what I mean? Do you see what I'm saying? Like, there's a difference between like trying to tie together lies that make at least some kind of sense versus just saying a talking point. At least like talking points that Republicans used to use back in the day were like somewhat associated with the issue at hand. Now, they're not even associated with the issue at hand. What the hell? And then when we're working through the details of like where the spending priorities were, come in here and go, that's the MSNBC is fake news. Okay, man. I bet you love MSNBC, you goddamn libtard. Like, no, I don't. As a matter of fact, I'm not exactly fond of MSDNC either. I'm not a Democrat. I'm not playing team sports. I don't care. I care about issues, and I care about solving problems rather than assuming that one team is going to solve a made-up problem that I now believe is a real problem. At the state level, a similar failure to prepare for the worst occurred during the last Texas legislative session. A bill aimed to establish a statewide council to create a statewide emergency response plan and administer grants for things like improved emergency alert systems died in the Senate, with detractors pointing to the $500 million price tag as one of the reasons to oppose it. This shouldn't be about anything other than the fact that it's $500 million, State Representative Tony Tinderholt said during a floor debate in April. The fact of the matter is that if there was a flood emergency siren system implemented in Kerr County, okay, that they knew since 2016, people still probably would have died, but the numbers would not be as severe. There would be more people that would have survived this disaster. It's that simple, okay? That's it. And as climate change worsens, doesn't matter if you think it's woke, doesn't matter if you think it's a Chinese conspiracy or not, doesn't matter if you believe that climate change is worsening, okay? There are tangible and immediate impacts, okay? Like these insane flash floods, like the wildfires that rip through California. You have to deal with that. So it's crazy on the one hand. It's crazy on the one hand to just go, nah, it's not real, it's fake, it's woke, it's gay, climate change is made up. And then also not even try to build a proper prevention system, a proper warning system that will save people's lives in the very likely event that these things happen, that we know will happen with greater frequency and greater magnitude. It's also extra crazy, on top of that, to defund the recovery and relief part of this too. And we're doing it all. We're not only burning the candle on both ends, we're burning the candle in its entirety. We're dousing it in gasoline and lighting it on fire. It makes no sense. And here we have another absolute moron, Kirsty Noem.
Government don't manage these disasters. The state does. We come in and support them. And that's exactly what we did here in this situation. FEMA went to an enhanced level immediately. But as soon as you signed the major disaster declaration, we were able to get them resources and dollars right away, just like you envisioned through state block grants.
In 2005, people were warned Hurricane Rita caused massive evacuations out of Houston and surrounding areas. Traffic congestion caused massive delays in evacuations. 107 fatalities were directly linked to the evacuation alone. After that, the city-state finally put in contraflow lanes to easily let traffic use both sides of a highway to evacuate. Disaster has to happen first for steps to be taken to fix it. And in 2005, people were warned, and just like today, they pretended it didn't matter. They had decades to be prepared for that as well. It's not like we are oblivious. It's not like we don't have scientists that are actively ringing the alarm bells with regular frequency. Okay? We do. We have these things. We've had these things for decades. People have been screaming about this exact moment for like 30 years. And every step of the way, we've gone, lol, that's just weather, stupid. That's just weather. You're so stupid. It's just weather. I was having this discussion about Don't Look Up with some friends of mine that were obviously annoyed with the smug tone that it took. Shouts out to Adam McKay. Love him. Friend of the show. Hasanabi head, Adam McKay. I didn't take issue with Don't Look Up. The reason why I didn't take issue with the bluntness of it, because it had no subtlety whatsoever, or even the smugness of it all, was because I think we're getting stupider and stupider. We're getting dumber and dumber every day. So I think that will stand alone as a brilliant work one day when people go back and rewatch it and go, well, this is exactly what is taking place. That's it.
Help them with cleanup, and we're still there in presence, and FEMA's been deployed, and we're cutting through the paperwork of the old FEMA, streamlining it much like your vision of how FEMA should operate, and it's been a much better response to help these families get through this terrible situation. We still are looking for people. We're still, we as a federal government.
I mean, yeah, we saw a version of this in COVID too. We saw a version of this in COVID as well, where like dudes were literally in their last breath decrying that COVID was fake. It's like, brother, you are dying. You're dead. You're dead. In a couple hours, you will die. And you are choosing to spend your last hours on Earth with a ventilator shoved down your throat talking about some culture war shit. What the You're dead. You're dying. Maybe I'm woke, so forgive me for being woke and lame and a libtard. But I don't care how much it costs to save people's lives. Okay? I don't care. I don't care what it takes. I would much rather spend the money on proper prevention. I would much rather spend the money on harm mitigation. That is what the government is supposed to do. What the It's crazy, man. It's crazy out here. It's actually because you rich, boy. What the do you mean? We're talking about the government. What do you mean? Because you rich, boy. Okay, I pay more to the government than you do. And I'm saying use the funds adequately. Why is this CNN website just like busted? What is this? Okay, anyway. Yeah, some of Mamdani's far-left allies want to primary Hakeem Jeffries and other New York City Democrats, and they got issues with that. We're going to be covering that in a second. But, yeah. Hasan Reactions is one of the best ones in the React channel.